Well, after looking at whatever pictures I could find on the builder's website, Pat Hatch again comes in very helpful to give you an idea of where to cut. This is, I guess, useful, but I don't know, I'm always hesitant to cut because I'm scared, but I kind of outlined the initial blue cut lines. We'll chop it by pit, just like these side panels. I'm sure they'll be okay. First thing I did was put this plastic piece in. Haha, I thought it was plastic, it's aluminum. And I found it was a little tight, like this was buckling in the middle, and I don't obviously want to bend these. So what I did, I don't know if you can tell, but I put just a tiny little extrusion going that way on both sides. So on one side it's kind of cool because it locks it in, but I kind of needed that to figure out where to cut this, and I also had to figure out where the wheels go. So I hooked up a little wire there. Yeah, it's very close in there, but I think when this pulls legitimately it will have more space, and I can also cut that down. So I started cutting this guy. Obviously I'm not done yet, and this is what I have. You know, it's getting there, starting to fit. I don't know if I regret cutting all of this out or trying to make it fit better, and then same thing with all of this. I know you obviously want to be able to look at the pulley for, you know, pre-flight inspection or what have you. But one thing I found that it does not, depending on where you put it, because I lowered this to match that, you know, because I'm so smart, and now this is too short, but I can add some plastic to that to cover it depending on where it is ultimately going to sit. So still got some work ahead of me, but chopping away. Since I'm very much a visual guy, and I haven't found much in the manual or online to look at, I put the door in to kind of see, well, not the door structure with the absorber here, and to see where it sits. The whole time I thought the shock absorber sat, or the strut sat inside here, but it doesn't. It actually sits like that, and then the door frame sits inside there. So I'm not sure. The top is cut out because this bracket sits there, and then the bottom, yeah, I really wish I didn't cut that. I can fill some in, and I've seen people mount it back here, but that leaves this exposed where the cable goes. So yeah, this is kind of wonky. This is going to require a little bit of customization, as far as I can tell, unless I cut this whole thing out and put the strut, you know, over that. But yeah, all right, this is baffling me. Everything shows that this is supposed to sit on the outside, but that's flush up there, and unless you force this way over, it's going to rub against the cable coming through there. So yeah, that's confusing. Rubbing cable interference or strut interference. Pick your poison. All right, one thing that took some of the strain off of the way this thing sits is moving this guy up. I know I notched it down here, but I'm gonna kind of keep it flush with that, and that makes this part, if you can tell, sit a lot better. And also down in here. So I kind of started drawing out the other side. This is going to be my proposed cut. So I know, like a knucklehead, I already drilled the holes there, but I'm going to keep it in, straight up, and that down to there. And then this side has the trim line in it, and then up here, that's inevitable, you gotta cut around the top box. So what that'll let me do is basically keep this covered and keep that covered, and I think it'll look a lot better. But yep, late again. That's a project for tomorrow. Bye. So I cut this with the new style, and you know, it keeps this blocked and that blocked. And now what I'm thinking of doing is filling in a piece here that kind of fuses these pieces together, adding a piece here, and then adding a lip underneath that kind of locks that into there. My original plan was not to cut this hole for this bolt because I wanted a clean look, but we're gonna cover this in like a uni suede or an alcantara type material, so that actually helps lock it in up there. And then maybe I can get away with just bending this over up top so it kind of hooks into there, and then just one bolt here. I did put a spacer up here, so this is a 1/4 inch spacer. That seems to be kind of ideal. And since I didn't finish the doors yet, I put like a 3/8 inch spacer here that keeps it pretty flush and kind of gives me an idea of where this is going to sit when it's closed. Where it really needs a mount is kind of something here that pulls it in this way. I have this piece of tape now, so I'm thinking of putting a plain clamp there, and I don't know if this will work, but holding it and then putting this thread set into it and hopefully that'll allow me to get an 8/32 screw into it. Remember, I'm going to glue a piece of plastic in here to close that out as well, and then duplicate the same thing on the other side. And I'm probably going to make this kind of round, because this will be like a gray alcantara on top of the black, which I think will look nice. And I'm thinking of kind of carrying that from the center console. I'm going to build my own console here. I don't know if I'll even use any of this. That kind of comes into here, so it'll be black on gray, or maybe something that maybe not matches the seat but offsets it. So I think that'll look really cool. First thing I'm going to do is plug these two holes. So I drilled them out to 3/8, and I have a 3/8 hole punch. So I'm going to punch a couple plastic pieces out there and glue them in. Alright, what I've done so far, stamped out a couple holes. Now if you can see it, put them into where I drilled the holes that I was originally going to cut this. I added a piece up here. You'll see this sits up against the brace, and then added a piece there that I cut too much. And on this one, what did I add? Oh, yeah, I added this entire piece which I cut out, and I'm gonna put a piece there and there on both of them. Right now, I just glued these strips on there because there was a little bit of a gap, about a 1/4 inch here, and it was flush there, so just kind of building that up, and I'll cut the excess off. It's getting there. I ended up adding a little bit down there, and I also put a support behind it. These are the filler pieces on the side. I want to make like a little tongue that grabs this piece. I also thought about just putting a tab here to mount it to that screw, but I don't know if I'm going to do that. This one still needs a little bit of work. Right now they literally just sit by being locked into that screw up there. Here you can see I just glued a piece of ABS on the back of it because it got really thin down here, just to give it a little more substance. But yeah, so tomorrow's project will be to do a little filler piece here. I have this piece kind of blocking that. I think I may just continue like the factory has that piece down in there, and then the same thing, all that up there, so the line along the cage tube is uniform, and it doesn't actually need to roll around. It just kind of sits up against it as long as it's tight. That'll make it a little bit easier when the aileron cable's in, which it is on the other side, so it doesn't get caught in it. I mean, it's not a big deal, but, well, it's not the aileron cable, it's my little 22 gauge wire. But as you take this out, like, you just have to remember to scoop it behind it, and I just did that so you can't see in there. But if I have that up front, it'll make this line look more uniform, and it'll actually make it easier to take in and out. So way too much over engineering for a simple trim piece. Randy probably thinks leave it out, less weight, but I think it'll look good. Like I said, we're gonna do that part in alcantara, so I went with the remember, that'll sit more like that when it's done. Rounded it on the bottom. I think it's a nice touch. I thought about maybe rounding these over, but I don't think I'm gonna. All right, good night. Boy, I babble a lot when I'm tired. Time to get back to work. It's another 2.5 hours of cutting, trimming, gluing, spacing, fitting, putting a little tab underneath there. Made this filler piece. Same thing for the other side, trying to keep them pretty symmetrical. I glued that on. Right now I'm adding a little extension down there. And no, I'm getting carried away here. I'm gonna put a little extension in here as well. And probably underneath here, just so you can't see in there. I don't know. I like doing this stuff. Big waste of time, but I think it'll be a nice touch when it's all done. I brought this out, so this drop is only 1/2 inch. I brought a couple of samples of alcantara home. Probably use one of these. There we go. One of these grays. And just want to make sure that I can stretch it in there without having to stitch it or do any bubbles or anything like that. But I like the way it's coming out. Just a lot of work. Don't do this. Another day, another trim piece. Right now I'm working on gluing these little inserts in. And I made these kind of like angled hook tabs that go underneath, but I just had them at a 45, and now I made a little jig, so I'm gonna heat them. Should line up like that, a little space in between. This is just masonite because it seems to be a good thickness. Gonna heat that and then just push one down with the other to give it like that rounded contoured look. And the reason I put this looks wet on the end is there's actually CA glue that makes it really, really hard, just because I didn't want that tip breaking off. So all that work was for this little tab, and what that tab does is basically two things. It's exactly 1 inch wide, which is the width of that hole. So it literally allows you to keep this thing from moving forward and backward because it's locked in there. And also this panel, like if you push, oops. Once you push on it, it won't allow you to push it in. Then I added this piece in here, this in there, and literally it just snaps into place at this point. Still using that screw kind of as an alignment. I'm going to plan on probably putting one, I don't know if I need it, but if I need it, one screw here, one screw there. So that's what I came up with for the mount behind here. Is basically just a cushion clamp with a nut or thread set in it, 8/32. You can, it's really tight, but you can kind of move it if it's off a little bit. I think that's going to work quite well, but time will tell. But before you're going to fit that thread set into these holes, you got to open up to 15/64. That's this guy. 1 bit below 1/4 inch. So the next step is take passenger side out and just trim that a tiny little bit more. I kind of want a loose fit like that side to make room for the material. Well, I think I'm going to leave these side panels here for now and probably end this video and move on to the next thing. One of the reasons is that since I modified, you know, this is supposed to be all open. I know you got fuel lines that come out here and the Teleflex cable for the flaps. So I'm not going to cover these yet in case I need to cut this down some more to make room for that. But other than that, I mean, they're pretty much ready to go. I know I went above and beyond. I'm still going to like fine sand those, put a spacer in here. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Probably a little bit overboard with the attention to detail, but also want to move on to the next thing. Thinking of either this floor right here and yeah, now I'm babbling. I don't know what I'm doing next. I know I'm finishing this video.